Time is now 6:01. Let's call this meeting to order. And with that being said, the chair is seeking a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President, I so move that we adopt the agenda as printed.
And second that.
All right, if it's been moved and second, and there's no discussion, Ms. Payton, if you could, we'll just do a roll call for our vote. See who's all here.
Vice President Kendrick,
Here.
Byron Townsend,
Here.
Alvin Brooks,
Here.
President Watry,
Here.
Carol Graves,
Here.
Tremise Carter, Deron McGee. Mr. McGee has just arrived.
All right. All right. I think that will put the vote at 5-0. And we'll go ahead and go into 3.0, which is the return to learn update.
President Watry, Director McGee is
Oh.
on.
Oh, Mr. McGee, we did vote for, we just got done voting for the adoption of the agenda. We would like your vote.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. So that would make it 6-0. All right. With that being said, moving on to item 3.1, return to learn update.
Thank you, President Watry. Yeah, you can start first slide there. Let me thank the board, first of all, for calling this special meeting for the update on the return to learn, and also a special thank you for supporting our return to learn plan developed by staff. And we felt that in all full transparency, we wanted to share progress with the board as we move into different phases and different steps. So this is an opportunity just to look at that particular piece and give the board's consent on the next steps for our district. So there's about 3 different phases that we'll do the update in. And first of all, let me say that most people are aware that there's significant spike in coronavirus contractions across the country. There's a spike in Missouri, there's a spike in Jackson County, and there's a spike in our jurisdiction in Hickman, and if you go by postal code in terms of that. So that's caused us some great concern and wanted us to take some immediate action. At the same time, we are concerned about, continue to service our students and being able to provide them with quality instruction so they can continue to improve, but proceeding with an abundance of caution, trying to ensure that we have the health and safety of our students and our staff in mind going forward. I will say at the outset that, and you'll see some data on this in terms of the severity of the virus in our community. Most of you are aware that we've had at least 2 staff deaths in the last several weeks, and a number of other contractions throughout the community. So it's hit us directly where, we have colleagues that are no longer with us due to this virus. So we take this matter quite seriously and in no way want to politicize the actions that we take, looking at straight data and looking at the science moving forward. So you'll see an update around the data to validate what we're doing at this point. We're going to talk a little bit about the instructional strategy moving forward. And then we have a recommendation in terms of trying to target an opportunity to transition to hybrid. I think we're at the point there that, excuse me, our staff and community want to see that we are trying to move forward from yellow to green at some point, At the same time, we're measured in our steps because of the virus, but we do have a plan. So we want to kind of share that with you. Next slide. Well, before Dr. Skinner goes, on the outset, one of the things I did really want to thank, I do really want to specifically thank our parents. In conversations with my colleagues, superintendents around the state, I think our parents have been exceptionally understanding of the situation, understand the realism of why we're taking the steps. So we've had sort of overwhelming support for our actions. So appreciate the thanks to the way the parents have approached this. And also, of course, to our teachers who've and our paras and our support staff in our schools who've approached this with abundance of caution and keeping health and hygiene in mind and understanding that these are difficult decisions that we have to make for the community. Not everyone will agree when we're taking steps, but overall, we've had a really good response, even from people who don't fully agree, have been very understanding. So I wanted to show my appreciation around that. Dr. Skinner?
Okay. Good evening. I'm going to start in the middle with the gray, dark gray, Eastern Jackson County graph, and then I'm going to kind of go counterclockwise around until we end up with our staff numbers at the top. In Eastern Jackson County, there have been over 12,500 cases. There's been over 148 deaths, and the last 7-day average, there have been 168 new cases each day. And of course, we border Eastern Jackson County, so it's very important because part of that, it really reflects on our population. And if we go down to the bottom two graphs, the weekly positivity rate and the COVID-19 case and death trends by date, that is Kansas City. And you will see they're a little bit backed up in getting some of these graphs together. For instance, when you look at the graph on the bottom left, it actually ends just slightly under 14%. And that was dated October 10th. However, when you look at today's date, Kansas City is 18.9% positivity rate. And when you look at the Kansas City date, that's October 24th through the 31st, which is the last date. And 7 days later, it's over 15,000. And currently it's over 17,000 in the Kansas City area with 239 deaths to date. And I kind of wanted to look at Missouri as a whole. When you look at Missouri, the last 7 days, this data was taken yesterday. Today, the data looks a little different. Today, the data is almost 26,000 cases. The deaths, thank goodness, have gone down a little bit to 56, but the positivity rate is up to 21% across the state. And so again, it's just, I mean, you're looking at the numbers, and I said 26,000. So we're over 1,700 cases across the state in one day. If we look at the top, we'll see student ages 5 through 9 that reside within the district boundaries. And you'll kind of see a trend going from 10/21. The last date I was able to pull data was November the 9th, just a couple of days ago. And you can see a constant growth from 103 all the way up to 122 positive cases with students between the ages of 5 to 19 that reside within our boundaries. And lastly, if you look at the staff numbers, the number of staff that have had to be quarantined due to being exposed and being positive, again, we had 26 and 21. And just today, we've added 4 more staff members that had to be quarantined to being exposed. So that number has grown to 30. So again, the data is really staggering right now. We're spiking extremely at a very disappointing rate across the state and even locally here in Kansas City. Any questions?
Dr. Skinner,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. I know that you've given us these numbers for Eastern Jackson County. Do you have any numbers for Cass County? Because I know Cass County is our southern border, and I know that a lot of our folks travel between, those two areas. So I do have any numbers for Cass County?
I don't have those off the top of my head. I can get those for you if you'd like.
Yeah, I was just curious because I know you have these Eastern Jackson numbers, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't have that tonight, but I can definitely get that for you.
Thank you.
Okay. You're on mute, Mr. Robing.
Okay.
Ms. Gray, are we taking questions or do you need to finish this report?
Well,
Should I wait till you finish?
whichever you like. You can-
Okay. Well, I guess my concern is this. I just was watching the news. I don't see these numbers getting lower. And I'm looking at two big holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, where we have been advised not to get together, in a big group, but I don't know how effective that's going to be. And it just doesn't seem like these numbers will get down enough, even if we were planning to do a hybrid or go back in January. One of my concerns is, because I am a teacher, is who's getting tested, or the teachers getting tested, or the students. I mean, like for us, our special ed students that started coming back, this is special ed. It's about 17 kids, and the kindergartners, and then up to 8th grade. Well, the kindergartners are not wearing masks. Now, I don't know why, but I don't know. I just, that's a concern that I have. I don't see the numbers going down. I don't see a vaccine. I don't see anything that's going to bring it down enough to say you can go back even at a hybrid model. But that's just a comment I'm making, that's all.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Graves. I think your comments are right on, and maybe we should finish because we're probably going to cover some of those pieces and then have people. But I did want to go back to Director McGee's question. Was totally appropriate, because that's one of the considerations we've always had, because we have staff that come from all over, all types of jurisdictions, not just within Hickman Mills. So, that has a bearing on ours as well too. I have a recommendation here that we're still going to add some more details. One of the things, we were kind of getting pushed to look at getting into yellow hybrid status as soon as possible. But when we looked at the data, and we've kind of been vacillating over this, and we see the spike going up, it's never been higher during this time from March till now in the nation. It's never been higher in Missouri. It's never been higher in the Kansas City rate. And we talked about the positivity rate. You saw the positivity rate at 20. Now, public health recommends between 5 and 10% positivity rate before you even consider going to health status. I know that you see some of the surrounding districts have still moved on, made decisions to move on in that. But for us, we're kind of looking at it, and we've decided that we need to still proceed with an abundance of caution and follow the data and follow the science. And so we would not be making a recommendation to go into yellow hybrid status in the next 2 weeks because of Thanksgiving is coming up. The spike is still over the expected limit. And then we move into the holidays. So we've also restrained ourselves from bringing our students and staff back within that. But at the same time, we want to set some target that we could look at to say we hopefully, if things continue to trend, we can move that. So we've put a January 19th date to look at starting our hybrid. But at the same time, there's a caveat to that. That's only if community spread has significantly decreased. If it has not decreased, then we will continue to delay and move the date appropriately back until it is safe to do so based on what public health says and what our community's spread dictates. So that's the premise of it. So kind of the message we wanted to really give, that we're going to continue to stay in red status at this point in terms of red status for distance learning and virtual learning. And now we're gonna hope that in January things are a lot better in terms of flattening in order to consider that. So next slide. So I used the word hope, and we're going to be starting a hope campaign, because I know in talking with students and talking with teachers and parents and support staff and talking to parents, everyone hopes we could get back but it can't happen without having good health hygiene. So everyone needs to continue over the holidays that are coming up. But we, you know, I can't say this enough to keep your social distances, keep your family gatherings as small as possible, wear your mask, wash your hands, and do all the appropriate steps that need to be taken in order for us to be able to go back in the buildings. One of the barriers that have restricted us from going back is we haven't seen the behaviors in the community exhibited enough to decrease the spread, so we could go back and feel confident about that. We're not at that level. So we're going to start this campaign in several weeks around the Hope campaign, and we'll be having messages that go out to remind people around the things that we need them to do in order for us to be able to get back into our buildings and have the face-to-face as we move forward. So look for that campaign, and please share it around and encourage people to practice positive health hygiene so we can be back into our buildings.
Good evening, board, staff members, and community members who are listening in this evening. We did want to paint a picture for what our targeted reentry plan might look like for the yellow status if the data warrants that we are able to get back into school in January. So we're taking a phased approach to reentry. Again, I just want to reiterate that this will all be dependent on what our community COVID data looks like upon return from winter break. You can see there the first bullet point that all distance learning will continue through Friday, January 8th for students and teachers. We would then Monday, January 11th, potentially have our pre-K through second grade teachers, as well as Burke and Crittenton teachers, begin reporting to buildings to prepare for the reentry of students. But that entire second week of January, all students would continue distance learning. Beginning Tuesday, January 19th, after the holiday weekend, would be the first time that we would hope to have our youngest students in class. So pre-K through second grade students would report to the building 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And we'll show you a visual on the next slide. We would then also re-entry our 3rd through 8th grade teachers to start reporting to the buildings that week of January 19th, again, to begin preparing classrooms in the building for the possible re-entry of students. Our 3rd through 8th grade students would then phase in on Monday, January 26th. You'll see that 3rd through 8th grade would be a hybrid schedule based on those class sizes. The hybrid schedule would be 2 days in person and 2 days virtual learning from home. And again, we'll show you that on the next slide, what that visual looks like. Monday, January 26th, you can see there that potentially 9th through 12th grade teachers would begin reporting to buildings, and then high school students on that hybrid schedule the following week, that first week of February. Again, just reiterating, this is our proposed reentry plan. It will all depend on what that positivity rate looks like, and we'll continue to push the date as needed based on what the science says. This beautiful little graphic, I want to give credit where credit is due. Marissa and her team in PIO put this together as a visual for all of us to try to keep track of what our hybrid learning could look like. So if you look there, pre-K through second grade, it shows that on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, those students would be in classrooms those 4 days, and that's just based on those classroom numbers that we currently have. 3rd grade on up, all students would be divided into 2 groups. They actually already are divided into 2 groups. The blue group students report on Mondays and Tuesdays, and they have virtual learning at home on Thursdays and Fridays. The gold group students would be at home on Mondays and Tuesdays and have virtual learning on Thursdays and Fridays. We left Wednesday in there as our buffer day, if you will. That will be a day when there are no students or staff in the building. We'll use that opportunity for Mr. Weekly and Mr. Robertson's team to clean the buildings, disinfect, and before we switch out the other group of students. I would share with you also that the blue and gold group is not necessarily alphabetical. The way the system created those groups, it did allow families to stay together. We felt it was important. We don't want little kids at home and, bigger teenagers having to go to school, that kind of thing. So families are together, and what the system did was work to balance numbers across buildings. So this would be a graphic that we would share with all of our parents and students and provide notification about what group their student was in.
Okay, so once again, our recommendation is to target January 19th based on the science and data to support some level of hybrid in-person instruction based on the significant decrease in COVID-19. And if that is not the case, then we will delay and continue to move the timeline until it's appropriate to bring our students in. So that's a recommendation before you. I would ask President if you would ask the board to have discussion and maybe make a motion to support this recommendation or modify however the board sees fit would be appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Obeng. I would open it up to my colleagues to be able to ask any questions that they may have.
This is Ms. Graves. I have a couple of questions. One of the questions is, who's going to be teaching if you do the hybrid model and you have, let's say, students on Monday and Tuesday, who teaches the kids that are not there? Do you give them assignments or what? The people busy? Who's going to teach the other group? I'm just asking.
May I take that, Mr. Obeng?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Ms. Graves. It will be independent activities and assignments that will be pushed out to students. What we don't want to happen is we don't want to be in a situation where teachers are attempting to teach those students in person and the students who are at home. We have heard from other districts that has not been the best solution. So teachers will use Google Classroom and Seesaw to assign work and activities on those 2 at-home days.
I hope that the students do it when you get back to them. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the other question is, again, my big concern is, even if you go with the yellow, your people are coming back. You're not testing anybody. I mean, you're just taking your temperature, but you don't necessarily have to have a temperature, or you could have a temperature and have something else. And then what happens if your staff gets COVID? I mean, have you thought about that? Are you going to be hiring additional substitute teachers through Kelly or what, so that learning can continue on? Have those things been thought out?
Yeah, I'll jump in and you can jump in there. That is very detailed in our return to learn plan. So the initial plan that we set to you, we had the categories around what happens in employment, what happens as a contraction. We've talked about meals, we talked about absences. We now have the ability from the state that we have 6,500 COVID tests that we could employ if we wanted to use that. But the question is, do we want to support looking at a hybrid model when it is safe to do so? So we're not saying to do it now. We're not even saying we're going to do it at the beginning of January. We're just setting a target to say we're going to look to do that if it's safe to do so. We can talk more if you have more questions about the logistics. We can always pull up the presentation prior with the full package. We go on the site, has a lot of the questions that you're raising. We can always go over that again if the board wishes to have.
This is my last question. Even if the numbers go down and you're able to go back on a hybrid, are you going to take precautions to make sure that not only the students are okay, but your staff too? That's a concern I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said that's detailed.
Okay.
That's in the handbook. That's in the handbook to talk about the temperature testing. Now we actually have actual tests that we could utilize if we wanted to from the state. And we've got over 6,000 of them that we can use in our district. And
you can be okay one day and 6 the next, but okay. I'm gonna be quiet. I've watched the COVID thing. I really.
No, I hear your concern, especially someone who. I hear your concern is great, especially someone who's in the system. You understand the challenges, right? So, but I would say,
quiet.
No, you don't need to be out, but I would say go back and revisit the the initial plan.
Okay,
Has a lot of the answers that you're asking for in there. So in our HR department, and we're working with our staff and our unions in terms of making sure our staff are stable. And that's why we're in red, not like many districts have chosen to come back, but we just felt that it wasn't safe at this time, and we're going to continue to follow that. But when we come back, we're going to make sure we do have a plan that'll keep people safe in our buildings. And so we're not ready to do that yet. So that's why we're saying we're going to wait to look at it again in January rather than right now or even in December. Hope that helps a little bit.
thank you.
Okay, I have one question. Oh, it's more of a trying to get clarification. So it seems that we're gonna have like 3 groups of students. We're gonna have the blue, the gold, and then the virtual learners. Is that how the situation? Because
Ms. Rowe?
Yeah, yes, sir, that's correct. We still will maintain an all virtual option for those families who are not comfortable with a hybrid return. They will have the opportunity to remain a completely virtual. So we will have that still in place.
okay.
Does the board have any other questions?
I do have a response to Director McGee's question that I received from Dr. Skinner in terms of Cass County. The latest data we have on October 31st, they had 11.93%. So they're over the expected positivity rate at that time. So I suspect it'd probably be higher now that we're almost in mid-November because everyone's kind of spiked up since then.
All right. If there's no further questions from the board or any other concerns, the president seeking a recommendation for the targeted transition of the into the yellow health status hybrid beginning January 19, 2021, providing science data support instruction learning. And this is also if the spread of COVID, the community spread of COVID is not significantly increased, and that there may be a delay in the transition to hybrid.
Right. Decreased.
Decrease. Decreased. Thank you.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Second,
Is there any further discussion?
I just have the concern with the 3 separate groups. I know we have, I think we're having problems just managing the 2 groups and go into 3 groups. Try to manage 3 different groups. I don't know. I just think that kind of needs a little adjusting, but whatever the will of the board is, I just personally think 3 separate groups is a lot for the staff to handle.
Ms. Rowe, could you please elaborate on the aspect of the 3 groups?
Yeah, sure. We do have a dedicated group of virtual only teachers as it stands right now. So we started the school year allowing parents the choice to choose to be virtual only, and they'll have the opportunity to change that choice or maintain it for second semester. So there are already dedicated virtual teachers at every building for various grade levels. So we do look to have some continuity in that. The major difference will be that those teachers who are traditional and who are teaching from home right now, they will, once we go to yellow status, they will have students in their classrooms. Again, those in-person teachers only have 1 group at a time, and we've been really closely monitoring classroom sizes. And the average for an elementary classroom is 8 to 12 students on any given day in a classroom. That's an average, so there's some anomalies, but just to give you a rough idea of what it looks like in terms of numbers across the district as of right now.
President,
Yes, sir.
let me kind of follow up with Director Townsend questions, but not as specific as his was. Ms. Rowe, based on, and Superintendent being, based on those persons who, and I think I heard that some of our staff has been tested positive. Did I miss that? Some of our staff have been tested positive.
We have had positivity testing among staff. Yeah.
Now, are they still active, even though they're on Zoom?
I'd have to turn to Dr. Skinner for that, but I believe that everyone who was tested positive have gone through whatever remedies and are working, except for the people who were exposed in the last couple of days. But Dr. Skinner, you want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes, the people that have been exposed and even the staff that have tested positive, it's if they're able to, they have continued to work from home and join in their Zooms because they're separate from everybody. And if they're not, of course, that's when, there's precautions with some emergency FMLA that kicks in and they're able to take some time. But if they're able to, they have been working from home on Zoom with their students each day.
Thank you, sir. The reason for my question is that with these three different versions, not version, but three different proposals, I'm wondering if we lose some teachers along the way, and we could lose them so much, you never know. So none of this, all this becomes moot. But are we still got some backup by chance if we have some folks who have been tested and actually have the virus and don't feel up to being online even by Zoom? Does that make sense? Is my question making sense to anybody except me?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think Dr. Skinner wants to get in on this, but I mean, this is a challenge that, there are many districts who are already in hybrid right now. And one of the challenges that they're having now is finding substitutes and replacement when teachers get hurt. So I think
that was my next question.
Yeah, so that is an issue for many districts right now. We haven't been in that situation because we've been in virtual, and most of our staff, as you can see, have been healthy for the most part. And the number you see there are not only teachers. We're talking about all our staff. So staff that could not work, they're not here. We've been able to have replacements. We have a plan in place to replace when someone's ill. The challenge would be if there's a major outbreak, you don't have enough bodies to make that, then we would have to change the plan at that point. So right now, I'll tell you, many of my colleagues are now having conversations with their boards to go back to virtual. They opened in hybrid, and because of the demand, they can't keep up because they're having to close classrooms and find teachers, that they're going back to virtual. So that's one of the reasons why we don't think we're at the stage where we could open up virtual in the next 2 weeks or in December. We want to delay it and wait till January to look at it again. And if it's not ready, we will still continue, because we do have an operation going. And from all accounts, in terms of talking to our teachers and our principals, the virtual, we're starting to improve in the virtual. Of course, it's not the most ideal. Face-to-face would be the best, but we are learning some things that we're going to carry over. And we are being able to keep our students and our staff as safe as possible without any contractions within the job place. So we want to keep, but I understand your question. We haven't had to deal with that yet, but we're prepared to think about that if that happens in January.
Okay, thank you. I understand.
Are there any other questions from board members? All right. I would request that all board members have their cameras on to make sure that their votes are counted. and that they are visible. Vice President Kendrick,
Aye.
Director Townsend,
No.
Director Brooks,
Aye.
Director Graves,
No.
Director Carter,
I don't think she's.
she's here. That's all right. Director McGee, you're muted, sir.
No.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-2. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. 5-2.
No.
Oh, Ms. Graves?
5-2. I don't think it's 5-2.
I don't think it's 5-2.
President Watson, we have 3 noes.
Thank you.
Director
Sorry.
Townsend, Director Graves, and Director McGee.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Chair votes aye, motion carries 4-3.
Okay. Thank you.
I would like to thank the staff for your presentation this evening.
Thank you. On behalf of staff, I would invite the directors who are not in support of recommendations. You can send me a direct communication around queries around resistance around this. We thought this was the most prudent decision, so it'd be good to get a little better understanding. So when we come back, we can have something that people can feel good about fully supporting.
I would also recommend the aspect of being able to, I would ask those other board members as well as the board members who did vote for this to continue to review the Return to Learn plan. It is very thorough and rigorous in regards to the aspect of of ensuring that we're protecting our shareholders, our staff, our community. I'm not stating that based on the fact of how you voted, but rather that it's important that board members are adhere and are informed of the seriousness, not just of the updates that are happening with COVID, but rather the district's response to how we will address COVID.
Yeah. Just there's no need for me to send a email. Like I said, my concern is that the 3 different groups. Like I said, I don't think we're going to be able to handle it. There's going to be too many variables, but that's just my concern with the plan. It's not anything about when or where. I just think that uncertainty. I have some uncertainty about the 3 different groups.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
And and one of the things that challenges for us, we want to make sure we have small enough groups so we can keep people socially distanced, right? In terms of doing that. I don't know if you got there are certain parents and certain students that are already committed to doing virtual for the year, regardless of what we do. So that group has teachers that will
would be me.
year. What's that?
That would be me.
That'd be you. Yeah. So
I'm virtual all year.
But I hope people didn't miss the point really of the recommendation was that we were saying not to move to yellow right now because we were getting some pressure around people saying that we should start to go into yellow now, but we prevented the data and said that we're spiking, that we think we need to stay in red now before Thanksgiving and after Thanksgiving and wait till at least January to look at it. So when we come back in January and the numbers are still the same or not increasing, we're going to stay what we're doing with right now.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be a moot situation anyway. I don't see anything going down. So
yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah, we just want to be prepared. We have to hope, right? We have to hope. I'm hearing from people that we might get a vaccine and all these kind of things. So we have to be prepared just in case we have the opportunity. But
you won't get it by January.
Yeah, I agree with you that I don't, I'm not that realistic in terms of the trend right now is going up. But as an organization, I think it's part of my responsibility to have our staff ready to shift if we have to. So that's why we've had to kind of take this step and be prepared just in case there's that opportunity.
I think, Mr. President, I
Yes,
think,
sir.
Superintendent O'Bien and Steph, I think, and certainly this is not to be argumentative with my three colleagues, but I think that well, this may not be a good analogy, but you prepare for war in time of peace. Those of you who are not old enough will know what all that means. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that we don't know what the future holds tomorrow, but you still prepare for tomorrow. And I think your presentation and what direction you're going prepares us for tomorrow, even though we don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
That prepare for war in time of peace, I think that was World War I. I wasn't around, but I read about it.
Mhm, right.
All right, Carol.
All right. Well, thank you on behalf of the staff of receiving this report and supporting our next steps in terms of monitoring this global pandemic situation as we move forward.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your preparation as well. Again, rehashing, doubling down on what Mr. Brooks had just said. It's actually Latin, but I'll leave it there, not just 411. I'd like to thank everyone for coming here and showing up, especially the staff that were able to tap in and see this update. I hope that it gives you some reassurance. With that being said,
Mr. President, do we have any idea were there any parents on tonight, Ms. Payton?
I believe so.
There are 90 participants on. I cannot
good.
distinguish by name between staff and parents, but there are 91 now participants on.
Okay, well, that's great. I hope the majority of those are parents. Thank you, Ms. Payton.
We will be sending a communication out to parents with information, and people are always welcome to click on the link and view this meeting as well too if they missed it. So
I'd like to thank everybody tonight for coming. The time is now 6:44, and I call this meeting to adjourn.
Thank you. God bless everybody. Be safe.
Be safe. Please be safe, and wear a mask. Please
Yes.
wear a mask.
Wash your hands and any place else that you think needs it.
All right. Good night.
Good night, everybody.